I'm just going to wait a second to check that you can hear me. So just checking that my sound is all okay. Excellent. So if you are joining me for the first time, welcome. This is a session for sort of beginners watercolours, beginners and improvers, to try some new techniques to paint something pretty, and just take an hour or so to chill and relax and do what we enjoy. Learn some tips along the way, usually from my mistakes, but just generally have a nice relaxing time. If you're coming back, thank you very much for joining me. It's lovely to have you here. So I'm Julie Ford, if you don't already know me. Tonight we are painting, it's a Cornish tin mine. I think it's called Boscastle. I can't remember, sorry. And this isn't the full photograph, but you can find a link to the photograph in the description, and also the line drawing. There is a line drawing in there. It's in a Google album, shared album. So the paper that I'm using tonight is Bockingford Rough. Now this is a large sheet. It's 16 by 12 inches. So I've actually cut an A4 piece out of this, and the other piece I'm just using to test my colours, but it's probably the most cost efficient way of doing it, to buy large and cut down. Excuse the aeroplane. Right, aeroplane's gone. So I have, and what I tend to suggest in most of the paint-alongs that I've done is that we stick to these 8 colours, because it will save you an awful lot of heartache in getting muddy colours. And it's what we call a split primary. So there's 2 yellows, 2 blues, 2 reds, and a couple of earth colours. So we have what we call a cool and a warm of each. So lemon is your cool yellow. This is a Sennelier yellow, which is a bit like your cadmium yellow deep, which is warm. Then we have a phthalo blue, which is cool, ultramarine, which is warm, crimson, which is, this is actually a rose madder, which is cool. And then this is a Sennelier red, similar to your cadmium red. And then we have a raw umber and a burnt sienna. And I just have them on a porcelain plate, makes mixing very easy. It's much easier to get good washes if you're using tubes of colour, because they reactivate quickly, much more so than pans. And these pictures are not easy to do if you're using student grade paints, because they just don't flow and don't have the same amount of pigment in. So just that's something to be aware of. I have a few brushes. I have a big wash brush because it's really hot here at the moment and the paper will dry very quickly. So I've got a bigger wash brush than normal. I've got a squirrel mop, but you can also get this as a synthetic. I've got a rigger, which is your long thin brush. And then I have 3 rounds. I seem to have lost one. Oh, that's it. It's in my hand. 3 rounds. And with this sort of rough textured paper, round brushes are really, really good for getting some sort of loose grasses and things. I have a piece of blue chalk that we're going to use to transfer our picture. I have a pencil, mechanical pencil, and I have this white gel pen, which is really just to go over the line to transfer the drawing. This is for my colour testing. This is my line drawing. Now, I have taped my paper on all 4 sides. You can, with watercolour paper, they say you should stretch it with the brown tape. You soak it and stretch it. But to be honest, if you're using good quality paper, it's heavy paper, it's £140, it does take washes quite well. So just taping it around the edges with some low tack art tape, this is actually masking tape I think, will work fine. It will work fine. So the first thing we are going to do is transfer our image. So let's move in a little bit, and I've hidden my knees, there we are. So in order to get this image onto my paper, and I always find it's easier just to work in the same size, just for these practice pieces, it's very, very simple. So you can use pastels to do this. I'm just using chalk. You have to be aware though, if you're using coloured chalk like I am, and I did make a mistake earlier today because I did a swan and then realised the lines on it were blue, which I wouldn't be able to paint over. These lines will come out blue, but we are going to be painting dark enough for it not to matter. So that's all you need to do to transfer your image. It saves tracing where you have to go back over it a couple of times. And then I'm just actually going to use the gel pen because it's got quite a sharp edge, just to get the barest outline onto my page. You can draw it freehand if you wish, feel free. But for the sake of these sessions, it's just easy. If you want to practice painting, it's not about learning to draw. It's easier just to transfer it and not beat yourself up. So I was actually sitting painting this. I have an oil painting of this. A few weeks ago I was in Cornwall painting live on a plein air holiday with the lovely Vicky Norman, and we got rained off. It had been really hot all week, and suddenly a gale blew up and our chairs started to take off and we had to run for cover. It was the only day that week that was bad weather. Let's just go over that again to make sure I've got it. And if you are enjoying these sessions, next week we're going to do some flowers. We're going to do some poppies. So it's something a little bit different, and look at negative painting too. Right, so that's not come out much, but this is why I have my pencil to hand. So I'm just going to make the lines a little bit more visible. You won't be able to see this at all, I dare say, on there, but I can just about see enough. We've got some little wall coming down here, and then this is quite dark, this patch in here, and then we have our window. That's all going to go on later as darker, so that's not anything to worry about. This is quite straightforward. There's some shadow in here. There's a rock behind this building, and which we need to make sure is dark enough to make this part stand out. These mines were quite incredible. They're tin mines, and if you think sort of back in the 1850s, this is the land of Poldark. These tunnels from these mines went 3 miles out under the seabed. I mean, it must have been terrifying, mustn't it? And whole villages were involved in working the mines. The women would be up top, and children, and very, very dangerous it was as well, but very, very affluent. Right, so I'm going to just use a bit of kitchen roll. That's the other thing I have to hand, just to wipe some of that chalk off. So I've got a very gentle line. I've just lost my picture. That's it. My reference there. Now, One of the things with watercolour, it's really easy to do, is not make our colours dark enough. So I'm going to start with the water in the background. Now, in the photograph, there is a horizon. It's right up here, and it's actually really quite hard to see. So I am going to paint it across, and I'm going to use a piece of paper just to mask that. Now I've got clean water, and I'm just going to give myself a bit of sky. So I've got a bit of ultramarine, and I don't want it dark. I want it really quite light. Very subtle. So it's not too wet. And then I can just leave that to dry. You can use a ruler if you wish. Doesn't have to be a really strong line, because it's what is it? It's so far in the distance, even in the picture you can hardly see where the sky starts and the water finishes. So with my 6 colours or 8 colours, I know that which colours will give me the colours that I want. So we've got some really nice kind of limey greens down here in the front. So I want to go in first of all with a very soft wash of something quite bright. So I'm using my phthalo blue and my lemon to give me a bright yellow green. There we are, this sort of colour. And I'm just going to put a bit of a wash of that, just going straight on and making it quite wet. I'm going to go all over this because we are painting over that. That's my path. So some of this is in light as well. So I'm going to go in with this really bright yellow. I'm going to make it a bit wetter because I want to drop some other colours in as well. So I want it to be a little bit more orange in places, and it's drying so fast. To work really, really quickly. Got a little bit of this orange as well. And I'm just going to drop it in some areas. A bit orange up there. That's okay, I think. A little bit of that blue, just to give a little bit of some of those shadows while it's still wet, you see. There's some greens up here, but I don't want them too bright. And then it goes into rocks. Okay. While I'm down here, if it's still wet a little bit, I'm going to try and drop in some darker colours. So I'm picking up the colours I've already used, a bit of my blue, and just see if I can put in some shadowy bits down the bottom, just to give it a bit of texture. And while it's still wet, it's running, so that's fine. And we can paint over it, don't forget. So that's actually quite a good colour for my rocks in the background. And I'm going to leave some, I'm using this big flat brush because let's add a bit of blue into that. It's giving me some sharp edges. I want that to be a bit greyer, so I'm going to put a bit of red in that. That's it. It's giving me some sharp edges, but I don't have a lot of control over it. That comes down really quite dark into there. So I want it to look like there's some hard rocks. gosh, it's hot here. Get some texture in here. And I can paint over this quite a bit later. This is quite green, some of this up here. I've got some darker bits. So I'm trying not to be too particular, too precious. Just trying to carve out some of these shapes that I can see. Right, and we'll come back into that a bit later. Okay. Right, I should. Oh no, I probably can't go over the water yet because that's probably still damp. So let's put a soft, warm wash on my building. I'm going to dry this up. I'm going to clean this off because that's a grain. I don't want that mixing in with any of my other colours. So let's clean that off. So one of the things about painting from photographs is you completely lose the perspective. You know, when you go on holiday and you take a photograph of a beautiful ocean scene or a lake in the distance, and then you get it home and you look at it and you think, that looks absolutely nothing like what I painted. And it's because the perspective gets pushed way, way back into the distance. So there's a little building here. And that's why you should, if you want to paint, you should really always learn how to sketch, because then you can capture the proper colours, because that gets completely wrecked by cameras. You lose all of the subtle shadows. So you can capture, if all you do is capture colours and the actual perspective, you're onto a winner. Right, so this looks quite dark, but I'm hoping when it dries, it's going to look a lot lighter, because we're going to go in much darker around it. Okay. Now this is a little chimney. And again, I'm using a sharp edge brush. So have we got any more rock anywhere? Yes, we have some. We have some over here and here. I can paint over that if it's not right. And then we've got this really dark rock out the back. So I'm just putting in some highlights here. This is a little bit grayer, and this actually comes down, the water comes in around it. It's quite hard to see in the picture. Oh, that's darker. That's a shadow colour. And I might well have to go darker on that later. That's quite a good shadow colour though. Okay, we've got the path. So the path is going to come down here like this. And there's quite a bit of shadow comes into that. And there's actually a wall along here. Right. Right, I'm going to go in with my water. So I'm going to clear out my yellow. And I want my water to be really strong. So you can see now the paper is beginning to buckle a little bit, but this does hold it in place and it should dry flat when it dries. So my water is a really nice, very deep kind of, it's blue, but it's quite earthy. So I've got this ultramarine. I'm going to add in a bit of phthalo because I've got that in my I haven't got that actually. I'm going to use a bit of both of those blues, and then I'm going to put in a bit of burnt sienna. And can you see how that makes it a nice deep grey? So that's really good colour. And I need quite a bit of it, so let's pull down some more colour into a big pool. It doesn't waste, you see, it will get used. That's lovely and inky. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. I've got quite a lot of water on my brush, and I'm going to attempt to go across my horizon. I have to paint around the edge of here, but it needs to keep running, and look how fast it's drying. I need a bead of water here, look, because it's drying already and I'm losing that momentum. More water. That's going to start running back up, look, because it's so warm here. Got to work so fast. I'm trying to keep this bead of water moving. So that it doesn't all begin to dry back up. Right. I might have got away with it, we'll see. It might start to all run back, but we'll see. Okay. It's quite a good colour though, and I can always put a glaze over the top of it where it's drying up here. But that looks quite nice and fresh. So now I can start looking at going in and putting a bit more detail in and brightening up. I like watercolours that look like watercolours, but I actually really like bright colours. So I don't like all of them to be really soft and too subtle, if that makes sense. So I've got my rigger and my small round, and I'm going to start putting in some detail. So we've got these very dark rocks and things. There's actually some green in here that I missed. Down here. There's a patch of green. That's quite dark in there, but so we'll leave that. And down here, in actual fact, we can have a little bit of grasses, and I'm going to try and do a bit, she says optimistically, I'm going to try and do a bit of negative painting in here. So we'll try and paint into some of that. So I'm using the rigger kind of on its side, and because it's rough paper, you can get some quite nice effects. I'm just making it up as I go along, as usual. That's what the fun is, isn't it? There's some dark bits down here. need so much more water than normal tonight because it's so dry. And I can actually put some darker washes over this if I want to, of my grasses. But I don't want too much detail in the foreground. So that's not quite dry. So let's have a look at this area around here. And I'm going to carry on with my rigger to put in some darks. So I'm using the blues that I've used along with my raw umber. And can you see how we get a nice, it's actually pretty much Payne's grey. So I'll put in some little details. And look at where I've got shadow. Probably needs a bit more blue, it's gone a bit grey. A bit green actually it went. Okay, so this should be dry enough now. I've got a bit of burnt sienna in there. So you want the darks to be very dark against your buildings so that they stand out. Man, this is drying quickly. But I guess, you know, if you live in a hot climate all the time, this is just one of the things you have to get used to. Of course, we're in Britain, I'm not used to it, am I? It's always cold and damp here. Fortunately, it's not. It's a lie. It's not always cold and damp here. Okay. We have a little bit of shadow in here. And at the back here, this is very dark. This is where the rock comes down. I quite like the rigger because you don't have a lot of control over it. And I'm using it on its side to give the impression of rocks. Some of these are very, very dark in here again. And because I've got the rough paper, if it's quite thick, it will pick up some of the texture. There we are. So you're getting that texture's being picked up. So you won't be able to do this if you've got hot pressed paper because it's smooth. And it probably won't be even quite so effective if you've got knot paper, which is not hot pressed. That's got some texture, but nowhere near as much as rough. Got some little marks up here, but I don't want to make it too detailed. So again, let's just wiggle the brush around a bit. There's some dark greens up here as well, which I can brush over the top after. Okay. So if I try now putting a bit of a wash of blue and yellow over that. So this is just a bit too, I don't know actually, let's try a little bit in here. And then a little bit something darker. Up there, when I say up there, I'm talking about up here. It's a little bit more orange. So let's try mixing a bit of this in. That's a bit better. There we are, so you've got some different greens going on in here. And I want to try and be careful that I don't put all my detail in the background and then significantly lose stuff that's going on elsewhere. So I'm just putting in some darker wet in wet, some of this area. Yeah, I don't want this to distract too much from the main event kind of thing. This is all dark in here. There's actually a big rock here. Okay. And down here, there's some shadows. So they need to be darker green. And they are coming down to the path. So let's have a look at where these shadows all come. Some really, really dark ones down here. And it's probably not quite dark enough, so we want a bit more blue. And I'm going to put a little bit of crimson in. That's better. Dark shadows. And that's a lighter green. Right, where else are we going? We've got these shadows coming up from here. There's some quite pronounced shadows coming up here. I want to drop some real dark, some like dark blues in, but it's just drying so fast. Kind of working. It's a bit too green, so let's drop some of this dark muddy colour in that I made up. Very, very dark down here. I'm just trying to look at the shapes of things now, where these shadows go. Some of these in here. some of that blue in. Not loving it, but there's some darker over here as well. Look a bit contrived, don't they? I think that needs to come up a bit further. This shadow here. This one comes there. This comes quite a bit further up. In actual fact, I probably need a brighter wash over that, so I'm going to put in a bit of a yellow as well. Let that run a little bit. And this, I think, is actually a wall. Okay, that's all right. It's a very dark bit there at the end here. Right, so I've got some more of that dark shadow. Might begin to look a bit better once I've got some more shadow in here. So there's some rocks and the shadow comes all the way down and around the base of the rocks. And that comes in here. And again, here we've got some more rocks. That actually I probably should have left them white or grey, but I've done it now. Don't know, do you, till you start? Scrubland. Right, I want something quite bright again for here because it's not white. And also along this edge it's a bit warmer. Put another glaze over this path. Now I think in order for these to stand out, I need to go much darker behind them. So let's get back to my almost black. So my ultramarine, and one of my browns, and this is actually a purpley black, so I really like this. And this comes in. Might need even more pigment in here. It's a real inky, isn't it? Real inky black. That's a very strong line, that one. You can hear my dog huffing and puffing in the background because he's not getting any attention. Bless him. Ooh, gone over the edge. See, this is very dark in here, and there is actually water. There's a little bit of water in there, so I need to try and find that lovely blue that I had. There we are. Oh, don't think I should have done that. Got carried away. Got carried away. Done now then. Right, my rock, that has quite a warm edge to it up here. Let's make that a little bit slightly warmer. Transition. There we are. That's it. There's no light hitting it at this side. Just the top. Okay. There's a little bit coming out at the edge. Can you see that behind here? And there is some surf. Which I will have to do at the end. There we are. Make that a little bit less obvious. Same again down here. Down here I'd like to try and paint in some of the grasses, which I never find easy, but we'll have a go. There we are. Let that kind of run. Okay, that's quite a sharp edge, that. And there's a little bit of rock up here. How are we doing? Has to be really dark, and I don't like using black. You'll find a lot of painters don't like using black. I'll use colours that I've made black. So this, can you see how dark this is? So this all needs to be darker still, I believe. Darker shadows. And that is much darker green there. There we are. Okay, where are we now? A little bit of a soft wash through some of this area. And a bit more of a grey. There we are. Having slightly different greys, so having a warm grey and a blue grey, a little bit of green grey, just gives it a little bit more variation. So there's a shadow here that I haven't got at all. There's still some patterns in here that I'm missing. And some grey here. Okay. Let's see what happens there. Okay, now this bit here is got some dark, sort of a bit of a stony wall, isn't it? So let's as a shadow comes down here. And again, that needs to be much darker, and that bit at the front is green. So it doesn't matter if it all kind of merges together. This needs to be darker, so let's get some more of my inky. Just trying to mix up. It's very hard if you don't have enough colour to start with. It's very hard to mix it up again later. But this has got to stand out or it won't make any kind of sense. I'm not quite sure what happened there. My blue kind of didn't go where it was supposed to go. I lost my image. Let's get that back. That's it. How are we looking? Okay. So I've got a bit of a shadow on this side of my chimney. And not quite sure that looks very realistic, but hey ho, we'll keep going. This great green band across here. That looks quite like it's in shadows, that's okay. And you could actually do this with an ink pen, which would probably be easier. £8, so we're not far off. We're nearly finished. I want something warmer on the top of that wall, on the top of that here. There. Yeah, it's a shame about this. I'm going to try to put a wash over some of that can't think now. What am I trying to talk about? It's the water. I want the water to look a bit darker, I think. But let's finish the foreground first, and then we can decide. So I want to put some washes over this. So I'm going to wet it, but not everywhere. That's got a bit of colour on it already, actually. And put some darker green washes in. Some areas are dry. Okay. And I'm going to get some of my yellow, but it's mixed with other colours. Let's see what this does. Looks a little bit contrived, but everything seems to be competing now, which is a bit of a shame. I think I've overdone it. See if we can blend some of this out. Yeah, I think that's better. Oh, I'm not sure my shadows look like shadows. Let's put a green wash over that and see what happens. Yeah, this doesn't look right at all. So I do have, and these are too dark. So I do have the option to do a few other things. I can darken up my water. I can lighten up my buildings. I have a bit of gouache. So now, because I know I've kind of ruined it, I'm going to carry on and see if I can make it a little bit better. So I've got some white gouache here, and I'm going to mix that with a little bit of an orangey colour that I've got already made up, and let's see if we can lighten this up. So what I should have done is a very, very light, probably yellow wash on this, but a warm yellow. What a shame. Well, hopefully yours has turned out a lot better than mine. But you see, this is the sort of thing you need to do in order to work out what works and what doesn't. So this is the best place to make mistakes. You can always add in some little highlights with white gouache. See, this water should be much darker. And because white gouache is opaque, you can gradually build it up, make it stand out a bit more. There's this as well here. Some bits in there. And I've got kind of surf and stuff going on down there. What else have we got? We could use some of that up here. So it kind of ties it together. Now, I would really like to make my water darker. I think this looks much better now, actually. So, shall we try it once more and see? Might ruin it completely, but in for a penny, in for a pound. That's a bit too turquoisey, so let's put a little bit of crimson in that and see what happens. Oh, that's nice. Right. Probably completely the wrong colour, but again, it's dried too soon, drying too quickly. So there's no bead. It's just drying much too fast. I'd like to have another go at this. It's much a greener blue, isn't it? And because it's rough paper and it's drying so fast, it's kind of not covering uniformly. But I actually think that's better. So, what more do I need to do to it to make it passable? We'll be finishing soon. We're nearly at an end. Oh, thank you, Autumn. I appreciate that. I can't always fix them though. But every time I make a mistake, I learn from it. So, fingers crossed it helps other people too. I didn't leave this light enough either. And there are some really nice little white marks along the top of the wall that got left off. Got some white rocks in here, which probably need darker shadows around them to make them look like rocks. Right, now I want some proper white because I want some surf in here somewhere. There's some around here. There's definitely some out here. And there's some around here. Marks. How are we doing? I think I'm going to have to call it a day, to be honest. Not my finest work, but I've learnt a fair bit. I hope you have too. Next week, we're going to be doing poppies. So if you've enjoyed this, give me a like, follow along next week and see what we can get up to. And if you like poppies, come and join us and check out the links in the description, because I have a free community with, it's now got 9 different modules in it of beginners watercolours on my website. So come and join us on there, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.